So we continue reading from Sri Chaitanya Sikshamrita. If you remember, yesterday we started reading the book, and it started with telling there are three vastus in this world. Yeah, so what are they again? The Ishvara, the Jiva, and this Jar or Prakriti, Maya. Okay, so then he started describing Ishvara. Ishvara means the controller, the source of all the other vastus. And then he's telling those who have no faith on the existence of Ishvara, they are atheists, and they are unfortunate. Okay, so we continue. So he said, it is improper to think of Vaikuntha as a material place. All places such as Madras now is Chennai. Chennai, no? All places such as Madras, Mumbai, Kashmir, Calcutta, London, and Paris are composed of matter. And in order to arrive at those places, we have to cross the borders of so many material regions. In addition, traveling by boat or train takes time. But by using such transport, our material body may eventually reach those material places. That's practical, understand? That's why Bhaktivinoda Thakur telling this is very simple, like this. Like little child can understand. You can go to Madras or whatever name he's telling here, or anywhere. Even you can go to Mathura. How? By getting some transportation, and somehow or other it may take some time, but still your body goes, attain that place. So these are material places, and by material transport, your material body goes there. However, the spiritual world of Vaikuntha is unlike any of those material places. So it's unlike those places. It is unique, being completely beyond the material world. It is composed of spirit eternal and totally free from fault. We are unable to see that divine abode through material eyes, or to think of that place by the material mind. Okay, so we cannot see that place with the material eyes. What is to speak of seeing? We cannot even imagine that place with our material mind. So in that inconceivable abode, the supreme controller of everything, that is Parameshwar. So there's Ishwar. We're telling this word Ishwar. No, Ishwar means controller. But there's also Parameshwar, the controller of all the controllers. So he said, in that place, the Parameshwar resides. If we are able to satisfy him, then by his mercy, we will be able to go there and eternally engage in his service. Okay, so he's saying like that it is only by his mercy. He's the supreme controller. So it is only by his mercy that we can reach there and we can have entrance to the activities there. Happiness in this material world is not eternal. It remains for some time and then disappears. So that is the principle of being temporary. So he's saying in this material world, everything is not eternal. The happiness in this material world is not eternal. That means now you may be happy, but later on it will not be the same. It can disappear. In this material world, everything is composed of misery. Taking birth is distressing and full of suffering. Then, after taking birth, the body must be nourished and protected by eating and other such activities. If there is a shortage of foodstuffs and water and others, then it gives rise to more suffering. Disease and pain are constantly present, and there are many difficulties in the forms of heat and cold, etc. You're following? So this is also a very common common like subject. Yeah, you may be more expert in explaining these things. So he's saying, uh, and see, this is what Bhaktivinoda Thakur was telling from the very beginning, that whatever he's talking here, this is found. Some are found in the teachings in other religion. Yes. So some religion may teach like this. No? So he's saying that everything here is composed of misery. Everything is composed of misery. So then we know the four miseries, no? Birth, disease, old age, and death. So that's what he was just telling now. So it starts with from birth, from the time you're born, already you're suffering immediately. Even before birth, the whole process of birth, right? That's all described in Bhagavatam, no? Imagine that, like how many months inside the womb. You may think like that was not suffering because you forget now. But that time when you were in the womb of your mother, you were suffering so much. You just can't remember. But Bhagavatam is reminding, is showing there. That the baby, you're conscious and you're there inside. Like right now, if I lock you inside the room, for one day you'll freak out already. 2 days, 3 days, you'll freak out. Imagine that 9 months you're inside there. And you're suffering because, whatever mother is eating, affecting you. Like, it's all there. I know you've read this in Bhagavatam. So, then when you're born, then necessary nourishment and protection, right? If some lacking, then you're suffering. You get sick. So then another suffering, disease. He said, we accumulate wealth in an attempt to avoid these causes of unhappiness, and thus we undergo great bodily inconveniences. Someone was telling me how, he sees how suffering just to get wealth. People working so hard like this. So they undergo, like here telling, they undergo great bodily inconveniences. They're working so hard to take some money. And only for what? So that then you can pay rent and you can pay your transportation. And what is there? Some little bit, something to watch your movies or drink some, whatever, some sense gratification. And that's it. Then after that, you get sick and you get old and you die. So, if we do not construct residences, then we cannot live comfortably. We marry and painfully struggle to raise sons and daughters. Yet in old age, we cannot take pleasure in anything. Okay, so now it's touching that point now. When you reach old age, then that's it. You may be able to enjoy, you've been enjoying so much. After some time, you cannot enjoy those things anymore. You're old. So it goes back to what he was telling, that this happiness in this world is not eternal. So then he's saying, not only that, we increase our suffering by quarreling with others. Now very obvious. By fighting, and so sometimes one by one, only one person fighting. But then the false ego becomes extended, family to family fighting. It becomes more extended, or maybe village to village fighting, tribe fighting. And more extended, or country to country fighting, like this. And more extended even, so then there's demigods and demons, they're fighting, like this. So, and by that, so much suffering. The essence of all this is that there is no such thing as pure happiness, unadulterated happiness in this material world. Ordinary people understand happiness to be the temporary cessation of misery and deprivation. So he said, really, there's no pure happiness. There's no eternal happiness in this world. What is considered by ordinary people as happiness is really only a temporary cessation of misery. Because in this world, there's so much misery. So that specific time, only a few seconds of no misery, that's happiness for you. So they're giving this example, when you're being drowned, when they torture you and they're drowning you in the water. And then, like you cannot breathe. And then they take you out of the water, and then you, like that. So that is like their happiness in this world. Then again, they drown you again, like this. So we should realize how troublesome it is for us to remain within this material world. After attaining the supreme abode of Parameshwar, known as Vaikuntha, we will no longer experience temporary happiness and distress, only eternal bliss. Therefore, satisfying the Supreme Lord is our only duty. So he's saying like that. So he's saying that, okay, this world is a place of happiness, like misery. But if you go to that supreme abode of Parameshwar, then no longer you will have this experience of temporary happiness. It will be eternal happiness. He said eternal bliss. And as he said before, how you can go there? If you satisfy Parameshwar, he will be pleased with you, then he will take you there, like that. So he said, therefore, to satisfy the Supreme Lord, that is our only duty. Meaning, this is our dharma. As soon as mankind develops knowledge, the desire to please Ishvara begins to awaken. So take note how Bhaktivinoda Thakur is giving like all this logic, Okay, so he said, he's trying to attract you. Like this world is place of suffering. The place of eternal happiness is Vaikuntha, with Parameshwar. How you go there? You please the Supreme Lord. Therefore, to please the Supreme Lord, that is our natural function. So now he's saying, as soon as you realize this knowledge, now he said, as soon as the desire to please Parameshwar begins to awaken, he said, that is when knowledge, that real knowledge is like coming. He said, as soon as mankind develops knowledge, then the desire to please Ishvara begins to awaken. In this endeavor lies his ultimate benefit. So this is the actual auspiciousness with this knowledge. So he said, some think, now we will enjoy material world, and we attain old age, we will worship Ishvara. Okay, so there's some people thinking, they're thinking that they're so smart. Like having both enjoyment. Okay, so like now we're young, so we will enjoy not the material world. When we become old, then that time we can do bhajan, like this. This is what the friends of Prahlad, were telling him also. However, by thinking like this, they will achieve nothing. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying, they will achieve nothing. Time is extremely fleeting. When knowledge of our real duty awakens, it is necessary to begin worshipping Bhagavan immediately, because the human form of life is especially rare and transitory. So you take note. He said, okay, this knowledge can come, and this is the beginning of all auspiciousness. Okay, what is that knowledge? My duty really is to please Bhagavan, like this. So he said, now if you think that, I will do this only later, then he said, you will achieve nothing. Take note, this life is having human form also is very rare. And this life is very fleeting. Who knows? You may say, okay, when I become old, I'll do. But then 2 days from now, you'll die. I mean, your body dies. Of course, we don't die. Your body dies, and then finish. Now, so he's saying, no one can say when death will come. One should never think that one cannot perform service to or worship of the Lord in childhood. Did you get that? See, don't think that because you're a baby, you cannot worship God. So that's why there's the example of Prahlad. Prahlad, he's only 5 years old, and he himself is telling his friends, say, hey, don't think like, his friends are like, oh, we're young, we're supposed to just play like that. Say, no, it's like as early as possible we begin, because now, because like later on you think maybe later, Okay, when you grow up, you will have family. You will not have time to do bhajan. Also, when you become old, you cannot do bhajan also because your body now is like so much, like very, like it's not anymore competent like this. So from early age, yeah, you don't take advantage of the time. Like this. So he said, so Bhaktivinoda Thakur is telling that don't say that just because he's a boy or a girl, like young, you cannot do bhajan. There's so many examples in Shastra that shows that by like being young, it does not disqualify them. They actually engage in bhajan. So he said, is there any doubt that one can achieve anything if one properly endeavor towards it or sets his mind to it? If we practice an activity from childhood, then that action gradually becomes natural. Okay, so then the more time you have actually, then the more expert you are. You can see, even in material, like material example, some very good athlete or very good, like someone with very good skills, how they come, they have that like very expert, like ability, because from childhood they're training like this. So in the same way also in spiritual life, as early as possible, if taken advantage, then you only become more advanced. So there are 4 situations from which one is prompted to satisfy Parameshwar. Okay, so you understand this? He said there are 4 situations by which one is impelled to serve God, or to satisfy Bhagavan. One is fear. Second, material desire. Then, sense of duty. And number 4 is attraction or rag. Okay, stand like that. Firstly, he said, those inspired to worship Bhagavan out of fear are driven by dread of hell, poverty, pain, or death. Okay, so you understand this. And it may have happened to you. Like, you're worshiping God, or you're doing or some people, they pray. Why? Because their plane is like now ready to crash. So then, they're so fearful, I'm gonna die. Then they're praying to God like that. So, or they're afraid to go to hell. Or they're afraid to suffer in like poverty and like this. Or already they're suffering in poverty and then they're praying, or like they're afraid. So that's the one motivation, one situation. Okay, fear. Second, others perform devotion to try to improve their material situations. Being impelled by material aspiration, they pray to Bhagavan for material propensity and enjoyment. So this is common also. And you see many people doing, they're doing also Giraj Parikrama, all these like, different activities, because they want material, like fulfillment of their material desires. However, in the service of Bhagavan, there is such a degree of ecstasy and happiness that many who were initially driven to perform bhajan by the first 2 causes, namely fear and material desire, abandon them and engage in the blissful performance of pure devotional service. Did you understand that? He said, like, because really, when you begin bhajan means service. No, when you start service to Bhagavan, take note, this service to Bhagavan is bhakti. And it may not be pure in the beginning, but somehow you're connected to that activity of serving Bhagavan. So this is bhakti. And bhakti, we know it's called Ladini Shakti. Ladini means pleasure potency. So then, and really only bhakti is really the only thing that can give pleasure. It gives pleasure to Bhagavan, it gives pleasure to you. Like this. It gives pleasure to everyone. So, if you want to make Bhagavan happy, he will not be happy by like anything else other than devotion, by bhakti. So that's why this is pleasure potency. So in the beginning, you may have these 2. You may be engaged by bhajan because of these 2 causes. What is that? Fear and material desire. Like this. But it said, but because then later on you experience some happiness, then eventually you give up the original motive. And you just become attracted now. Like that. So he's telling, Bhaktivinoda Thakur telling like that. So then thirdly, so now the third, said those who worship the Creator due to gratefulness are inspired by a sense of duty to perform Bhagavad Bhajan. Okay, so some people, they appreciate, oh, there's a God, He's a creator, like that. Oh, He's like our Father, like this. So then there's some appreciation, oh, this is my duty, like that. So out of that sense of duty, then they perform bhajan. And fourth, there are those who are inspired to worship Bhagavan for a reason other than feelings of fear, desire, or duty. These people naturally taste the ecstasy of worship of the Lord. So these rare people are inspired by something else entirely. That inspiration is called attachment, or rag, or love, or prem. Okay, so it's either, it said, this attachment is called, that inspiration is called attachment or love. It's rag or prem. Okay, so that is the fourth one. And it said, this is entirely rare and completely different from the three. So now he said, rag is that intelligence which, without any previous deliberation, inspires one to run after and attain an object simply upon seeing it. You understand that? He said, without deliberation, meaning when you say deliberate, you think of some reason. You know, like you have some discussion within yourself. You deliberate. So he said, without deliberation, meaning without any reason, one is inspired to run after and attain an object just by seeing it. Like that. So this is called rag. You understand? So you may have experienced this. Like some lady passed by, immediately you become attracted. You didn't deliberate also, like, should I become attracted to that or not? Like that. No deliberation. Automatic. It's like, oh, I want. And you do everything to, to approach like this, to attain. So this is rag. So that person in whose heart awakens the inspiration to perform bhajan of Parameshwar, simply by thinking of him, is performing bhajan impelled by rag. Okay. So you understand now, these four. Again, what are they? Fear, material desires, then duty, and then rag, attachment. So when worship of Parameshwar is inspired by fear, material aspiration, or a sense of duty, it is not very pure. So he's saying like that. A factual practitioner, meaning a sadhaka, is one who worships the Lord on the path of natural attraction, on the path of rag. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying like that. Someone who is a real sadhak, he is worshiping the Lord on the path of rag. The other three, that means his worship is not pure. Okay, he's not a real sadhak. There is a very confidential relationship between Bhagavan and the individual soul. And one can understand the nature of this relationship once rag awakens within the heart. Okay. So, before rag awakens in the heart, you cannot understand this. He said there is a very confidential relationship. Confidential meaning something secret. Like not like openly available, like that. It's confidential. So the relationship between Bhagavan and the individual soul is confidential. So before rag awakens, you cannot understand this relation. Even though this relationship is eternal, it remains covered or hidden. It remains covered or hidden from the jivas who are bound by matter. Only by receiving a favorable opportunity does this relationship reveal itself. Now take note, this is a deep subject. And because some will say, okay, this relationship, some will say, is this given or is this how do you call that? Inherent. It's there. So because we say eternal, that means it's there. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says it's hidden. It remains covered. He said this relationship is eternal, but it remains covered. Remains covered or hidden from the jivas who are bound by matter. Okay, but because we're talking about the jivas bound by matter. Those who are not, the liberated ones, they know this. Okay, so, and unless you have this rag, you will not know this, right? Okay, so this is eternal, supposedly, but it is hidden, it's covered. But now he's saying, only by receiving a favorable opportunity does this relationship reveal itself. So something is received. So some, they're into this thing like absolute. Oh, it's not there, is not given. So no, it is there, but it's hidden. But something is given also. And what is that? Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he says, favorable opportunity. When the favorable opportunity is received, then this relationship reveals itself. Just as fire manifests from the friction caused by striking a matchstick, like this. So it said that in a matchstick or in a wood, fire is there. So, but how does fire come out? When a favorable opportunity comes, okay, you make friction, then it manifests, comes out. So similarly for us, each one of us have a specific relation with Bhagavan. But as far as this pure bhakti, like this, like a specific, like this, let's say, we should understand, we don't have that bhakti like the gopis, like right now. It's hidden from us, like this. We heard about this, we become attracted by mercy of sadhus, we hear about that, and we become like desirous. So that means, now it's kindled, it's beginning to be, and then now you engage in bhajan, and now engage in the process of bhakti. So now the favorable situation, the favorable opportunity has been given to you. Guru is telling you, do all these things, you do these like activities, chanting and everything, chant mantras and like that, hear Harikatha. And then the favorable opportunity is given. So then something is given, and then you experience that. So Gurudev is giving the example of Swati Nakshatra. Like something is given, like there's the water on that particular nakshatra, like rain coming. And according to where it lands, then it produces something, So you cannot say everything is the same, because each one have their own specific, let's say, container, So something is there, inherent. Something is inherent. You cannot say there's nothing there and everything is given. No, something is there. You have your own container, like that. And then when this thing is given, like this water from the Swati Nakshatra, then it produces pearl, it produces what is Gorochan, it produces like jewel, it produces camphor, like so many things, according to where it lands, right? It's like that. So Gurudev is giving that example. So he said, only by receiving a favorable opportunity does this relationship reveal itself. Just as fire manifests from the friction caused by striking a matchstick. This relationship manifests during the practice. It's called sadhana. So when the sadhak performs sadhana, then this relationship manifests. So by performing devotion, motivated by fear, material desire, or a sense of duty, this relationship has awakened for many people. You understand? So he said, by performing bhajan, motivated by fear and motivated by material desire or sense of duty, the first three, then this relationship is awakened because they perform some bhajan. Although it started with like not pure, but something is awakened. So this is awakened for many people. So he said Dhruva Maharaj is an example of someone who had first performed Hari Bhajan due to his desire to attain a kingdom. So which category is that? Material desire. However, during the course of his practice, meaning his sadhana, pure attachment, rag, for the Lord, born from his relationship with the Lord, awakened within his heart. You know, this naturally, because he's doing that, then especially when he saw Narayan, what happened? Dhruva, then he had this rag, this relationship awakened. Thus, he no longer desired any material benediction from Sri Bhagavan. So after that, then he did not desire anymore. So he said, fear and material aspiration are extremely insignificant. If the sadhak uses his intelligence, he abandons fear and material desire as impetus for bhajan. Okay, so he said, when sadhaka, like later on, he becomes intelligent, he will realize that, oh, this fear and material desire, they're insignificant. And ultimately, he will abandon that. In such a situation, feelings of duty then becomes prominent within him. Okay, so it's showing the level, you know. So from fear and material desire, it can become the feeling of sense of duty. That means, oh, you're progressing like this. So he said, in such situation, when he rejects this, he abandons the fear and material desire, these feelings of duty becomes prominent within him. Then, as long as spontaneous attraction or rag towards Bhagavan has not awakened within the sadhaka, he remains unable to abandon the feeling of a sense of duty. Yeah, following? So, now he's in that level. He's doing bhajan out of a sense of duty. You know. And as long as rag has not come, he will not be able to abandon the feeling of sense of duty. Because that is his motivation of doing bhajan. You understand? So, from these feelings of obligation, two considerations arise. The first is respect for the rules and regulations. That is referring to respect to Vaidhi. Vaidhi means rules and regulations. And the second is rejection of activities not in accordance with the rules and regulations. That which is avaidhi, you reject. And that which is vaidhi, you follow, you respect. So these are considerations of those people who are on that platform. They're doing bhajan in that sense of duty, you know, that feeling of sense of duty. Vidhi is the prescription that the previous liberated devotees, the Mahapurush, after thorough deliberation, they have established in the scriptures concerning the appropriate methods used for the worship of Bhagavan. Okay, so he's talking about those people who are in that stage. They're doing bhajan out of sense of duty. Two things are there. They will follow rules and regulations, and they will reject those that are like not in accordance to the rules. Right? So, where did these rules come from? Where did these rules come from? All this vaidhi. He said, these are from the previous liberated devotees, the Mahapurushas. They have thoroughly deliberated. It's like what is good for the people to do. So they have deliberated this. And they have established this in the scriptures. And so they're showing this is the proper method. Uh, if you want to worship Bhagavan. So again, why you worship Bhagavan? Because, you want to please Him, right? So if you want to worship Him, do this, like this. The performance of bhajan due to feelings of duty is called Vaidhi Bhakti. So now he's telling here, you perform bhajan due to feelings of duty, it is called Vaidhi Bhakti. Because that is the principle. When you're doing out of sense of duty, automatically you do what is like the rules, and reject what is not in the rules. So he said that is Vaidhi Bhakti. In it is seen respect for the prohibitions and rules given in the scriptures. Upon studying the different histories and behaviors of diverse peoples of the world, it becomes clear that belief in Ishvara is common to all types of humans. Okay, now going back to the subject of Ishvara now, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying, you look at the history and behaviors of different people. There are so many kinds of people in the world, many race or like traditions and like that. So if you look at their history and their behavior, he said it becomes very clear that one thing is common in all of them. They have some belief in Ishvara. When we talk about Ishvara, meaning the principle that there is some controller. Like this. So he said, even uncivilized tribal people who maintain their lives like animals by eating the flesh of beasts. So even this like uncivilized people, like this, they still worship and fully offer the respects to some Ishvara. And in their case, some they worship the sun, they worship moon, they worship large mountains, rivers, or trees, like that. Yeah? They consider them to be their maintainers and controllers. What is the cause of this? Although the individual spirit soul is still very tightly bound by material nature, as long as his consciousness is not completely covered, he will at least partially manifest the true inherent nature of a conscious sentient being, which is belief in Ishvara. So he said this is an inherent nature. It is a natural, this is natural quality of a conscious being. What is that? He will have belief in Ishvara, like this. So as long as he is not completely covered. So when you say there are sentient beings, but they're completely covered. Like, for example, if you're a tree, their consciousness is completely covered. You will not see the tree like worshipping Ishvara, like this. Unless, of course, there's some like special case, like here, we go to Govardhan, there are trees, and they said, they are sadhus, and they're doing bhajan, like that. So we're not talking about that. Okay. So, he said, as long as they're not completely covered, some symptoms of them, of their being like natural sentient being. And what is that? They will have some belief in Ishvara. It will be there. When people become civilized, they begin to study various subjects. Okay, so this is saying, okay, there's many levels of people. No. So you call someone civilized. How? When they study various subjects. However, because of false arguments and logic, their consciousness becomes covered, and they take shelter of atheism or the theory of monism. So when you say theory of monism, everyone knows, that there is like only one. Like monism, there is almost like when you say atheism, there's no God. When you say monism, that means there's only one, like only one energy, like this, like the Advaitavad. This Abhed Nirvanavad, it says, spiritual nihilism or non-existence. This is we should understand that these untrustworthy doctrines are simply symptoms of souls in a weak and enfeebled position. Between the stage of total incivility, what is incivility? What meaning? Like uncivilized, huh? Incivility. Like uncivilized. So when you say civilized, that means they have some culture. Yeah, they follow rules and regulations like that, no? Like morality, like that, no? So he said, between the stage of total incivility, meaning completely uncivilized, like animals, and the beautiful stage of full devotion. So these are like the 2 points of a spectrum, like completely low consciousness and the highest, like full devotion. He said there are 3 secondary stages of a human being. So there's 3 stages in between that. Civility, scientific stage, and the moral stage. So these 3 stages, he's saying. During these 3 stages, the painful theories of skepticism, atheism, materialism, and nihilism become obstacles to the soul's progress in life. These false theories lead some people in the completely wrong direction. It is not that everyone will be overcome by these theories, but those who are afflicted by these diseases and remain in their clutches cannot acquire the qualification to make their lives successful. You understand? So he said this atheism and nihilism or monism, they are like a disease that stops you from progress. So between this uncivilized stage and the fully liberated stage, you have this like devotion. He said there are 3 stages: that civility, scientific stage, and morality, a moral stage. So like you can progress from uncivilized to civilized to scientific to moral stage, and then to actual devotional stage. You can progress, but you cannot progress if when you become influenced by these 2 theories or these teachings of this atheism. He said he called it painful theories of skepticism, atheism, materialism, and nihilism. Wow, 4 then: skepticism, atheism, materialism, and nihilism. So nihilism, that's referring to this monism, like spiritual, like suicide. Telling that we don't exist, like this, or we are nothing. These false theories, they lead to the wrong direction, he's saying. Uncivilized tribal people can very quickly come to the standard of following the system of the 4 social and 4 spiritual orders, the Varnashram Dharma, by cultivating civilized manners and proper conduct and receiving proper education. So he's saying if, like uncivilized people, like maybe tribal or whatever, they can be elevated and they can come to that, following Varnashram Dharma. How? By just educating them, receiving proper education. Then upon following this system of Varnashram, they can attain a devotional life favorable for the cultivation of Bhagavad Bhajan. This is the natural sequence for the development of mankind. However, the presence of the aforementioned obstacles give rise to a most unnatural stage in life. So they block you from progressing. In different countries and continents, there are a variety of languages and natures amongst the people. Okay, so this is understandable. You understand this? There are many countries, many continents, and that means many languages. And many nature also of people. Like they look different, they dress different, like this. Although the primary quality of faith in Ishvara is common to all people, we see that their secondary natures are quite different. So they have a primary quality. And what is that? They have some faith in Ishvara. Already that has been mentioned, each one of them. But secondary nature is different. Even though the primary characteristic is the same, we cannot find two people within the entire creation whose secondary characteristics are equal in all respects. So he's saying like that. Although each one also have the same primary nature, and that is that. What is that? That we have this, like faith in Ishvara. That is in us, in all of us, in different degrees. But he said you cannot find two people in the entire creation having completely the same like qualities, because they're always different. Even two brothers who have taken birth from the same womb, we can say even a twin, there's always some difference. So the two brothers taken birth from the same womb have differences in their body and behavior. So how can those born in different countries be the same in all ways? Different countries have diversity in water, air, terrain, flora, and fauna, and because of this, people also have natural variations in physique, nature, behavior, clothing, and food. So this is easily understandable. You experience this. Like here, that is very easily seen. All these from all different countries are here, and you can see all different language and different ways, So the mentality of people born in different countries will also differ. Even though their primary feelings toward the Supreme will be the same, their secondary qualities in terms of how that understanding manifests will be quite different. You're following that? So they are the same as far as they have that primary feeling toward the Supreme. But then, as far as like their understanding how to manifest that feeling of the Supreme, that will be different. After crossing the uncivilized stage, human beings gradually pass through the three stages of civility, science, and morality. And finally, they come to the stage of devotion. Okay, so Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he tells like this. Uncivilized stage, then what's next one? Civilized, civility, science, morality, and devotion. Because of difference in language, development, foodstuffs, and mentality, we will also find differences in their various systems of worship of the Supreme Lord. Considering all this from a position of neutrality. Okay, so Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, okay, now just consider this from the position of neutrality. Don't take sides. Okay, just look in a neutral perspective. That you will see. There will be differences in how they worship, He said, it becomes clear that although there are many differences in the secondary sense, there is no loss for us in accepting these differences. Did you understand that? He said like, okay, there is some differences in the secondary sense. And in a way, you can see there's the primary is the same. As long as you see the primary is the same, you may see differences in the secondary. But he said there is no loss if you accept, okay, you can understand, okay, yeah, they're different. And you don't try to impose, no, it has to be like this, So to understand that, there's differences, and it's okay, having that kind of understanding. There is no loss. He said there is no loss in accepting these differences. He said only by having a united conception of the main object of our worship will we at the time of perfection be free from any faults. Again, I'll read that. He said, only by having a united conception of the main object of our worship will we at the time of perfection, be free from any faults. What does that mean? He said, now you may see these differences. And there's no harm, no loss if you accept that. And really, he said, if only all of us are united with that conception that the main object of our worship, what is our main object of worship? Is Ishvara, is God. There may be difference, but we are united because we're all worshiping God. And He's one, like this. Then we will attain perfection. No problem with that. There will be no fault, Therefore, the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is for us to worship Bhagavan, who has a pure transcendental form, Vishuddha Sattva Swarup. But we must not criticize the systems of worship of those who have a different qualification. So, this is the first thing Bhaktivinoda Thakur established. Later on, he will tell, like all the conceptions of Mahaprabhu, the very high thing. But he begins from this. He begins from this, trying to make people reconcile. That now you can see differences. And Mahaprabhu, he allows that. He said, Mahaprabhu orders that to worship Bhagavan, especially the highest conception of Bhagavan. But he said, we must not criticize the systems of worship of those who have a different qualification. They have a different qualification because they, in a way, maybe they're in that level, but no need to criticize. So he said, amongst the diverse religious practices of people throughout the world, we can find 5 main differences due to variety caused by these secondary aspects. These 5 are the differences in... Okay, what are we talking about here? So there are many religious practices, many religious groups. In other words, like right now, you call them religion, actually. Religion. When you say religion, they have a system. They're worshipping God, like that. So, he said, if you look at all of them, then you will find 5 main differences. Although, you can say they're the same because they are in that principle that we worship God, like that. So, what are those 5 differences? Differences in 1, teacher. They will have, each group will have different teachers. Okay. 2, mentality and realization of the worshippers. Okay, so that's one difference you can see. Like if you look in a certain religion, then you can look at this. Oh, who is the teacher of this religion? And then you will see the difference now. You can try to understand what is the difference between them. Then second, the mentality and the realization of the worshippers. Okay, so in that religion, they have worshippers. What is their mentality and realization? Okay, so that will be different from the others. Third, their method of worship. Okay, so they have also different methods of worship. Number 4, mood and actions in relating to the object of worship. Okay, so there's method of worship, and there's also mood and action in relation to the one being worshipped. And number 5, names and descriptions due to variations in language. Okay, so this 5 is more on the differences by language. Now they have different names and descriptions. Okay, so now he's describing here, first, difference in teachers. Due to differences in teachers or acharyas, some countries give respect to saints and sages, others respect preachers such as Muhammad, and others respect Jesus and saintly persons in that tradition. Okay, so you can see this, like different. In different countries, special respect is given to a particular greatly learned persons. People residing in those places are duty-bound to give appropriate respect to such great teachers, even though they may have faith that the teachings given by the acharya of their faith or country are superior to the teachings of the acharyas of all other places. Still, it is improper for them to preach this in other countries. You understand that? Now there are different countries. Each countries, they have their own like religious practice. So first, what's one difference? Their teachers. Okay. In some country, who's their acharya? They say, oh, Jesus and whoever follows Jesus. Another one, maybe Muhammad, whoever follows Muhammad. Okay, so there's some difference there. So he said, so Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he's saying, although they may feel that our teachers are better than the other teachers, they may feel like that. He said, it will be wrong for them to go to the other countries who are students of the other teachers and telling them that you should follow our teachers. You know, our teachers are better than your teachers. Like that. So this gives rise to disunity. So that's what he was telling. This will give rise to disunity, and the world receives no benefit at all from this. And then now we see this actually. These are all what's happening, all the fighting. Like they're breaking all the temples here in Vrindavan because now they're, you know. So then, second and third. What is the second? The diverse systems of worship due to differentiation in the conception and realization of the worshippers. So number 2 is the mentality and realization of worshipper, and 3 is the method of worship. Okay, so he's saying, due to differences in the mental nature and realization of the worshippers, there are different systems of worship. In some countries, okay, so these are practical example. In some countries, they sit on a mat, it's called asan, and worship by means of hand and finger gestures, they called nyas, and worship by means and breathing exercises, pranayam. Okay. In other countries, they wear a cloth wrapped around their waist, like a lungi. And facing their major place of worship, they pray 5 times daily by repeatedly standing and bowing down, like this. And these are the Muslims, they do like this. In other places, they manifest their humility by kneeling down in their house of worship, and with clasped hands, they glorify the qualities of the Lord and honor Him. So who's he talking about here? Like the Christians, you know, they kneel down and like this. So the first one he was talking about, like many like Hindus also, you know, like they're sitting on an asan, they're doing pranayam like this. So there are varieties of local considerations, such as in eating and behavior. Okay, so they have their own ways of eating and behaving, wearing special clothing during worship, and in rules pertaining to cleanliness and impurity in particular circumstances. Okay, so there are all these different rules. Like even in eating, like us here, we sit on an asan. We sit on an asan, and we follow all these rules, like no juta and like that. If you go to Jagannath Puri, if you're eating Jagannath Mahaprasad, they say no asan. Okay, sit directly on the floor when you're eating Jagannath Prasad, like this. And someone even like already eaten, like juta, say no, you have to take. It's Jagannath Prasad, like this.